Well, the FDA approved the vaccination. You're going to go get it now, right? Right? He has a plan, she has a plan, and you get to pay for it regardless.
The best way to get someone motivated is to stand for something strongly, deeply, passionately.
Subscribe to Disenthrall.
Do as you're told.
You're not going to get it. Why wouldn't you get it? You know, what, bro, do you not care about grandma, bro? It's an emergency. It's a pandemic. Why aren't you going to get it? Bro, come on. Greetings, you lovely, lovely people. How are you today? Welcome back to Disenthrall. I will be Patrick Smith today. We have the awesome Shepard. Welcome to the show, Shepard. How are you?
Hey, thanks for having me on again. Great. You?
I'm looking forward to an evening. I'm going to blow off some steam today. I'm going to chill today. And I'm going to try and lift my spirits today while talking about terrible things. So I don't know how that's going to work. But we're going to try.
We're going to make it happen. It'll be a happy, fun time. We'll make it so.
Yes. Yes, we will. Hello, everyone in the comments. Good to see you, Jim, NCAP, Leith. Let's see. Who do we have over on Odysee? What's up, Dan? Good to see you guys. Hey, Copblot. Okay, so we've got a list of things. Only one of them is funny. So I don't know how how to stitch this together into something that isn't depressing, but I guess that's life right now. So before we get into any of that, let's talk about some cool things that we've got going on, because we have a lot going on, and we need to begin with the good. Voluntary Virtue, a soon-to-be 501c3 nonprofit organization, already exists as a group of people working together. We're just still seeking. We're going through the process of getting the 501 and, jumping the legal government hoops for that. The organization exists. Shepard is on the board with me. He's kicking butt. We're getting it set up. Our first event is coming up very soon, September 4th. I think it's September 4th, which is the same event I did last year, which people that have followed this channel for at least a year would have already known about this, because we did it a year ago. And you probably donated, because you people are awesome. We went out for my birthday. We did like a thing where we went out and we got a bunch of awesome people to donate. We bought a bunch of really high quality bacon wrapped filet mignon, the same stuff that I get from my butcher for me to eat personally, and really, really high quality stuff. And we took it out and we cooked like 100 steaks for the homeless in South Dallas. We're doing that again this year, except this time we have Voluntary Virtue, the nonprofit, that we can actually be more official and upstanding about it, instead of just Patrick doing something for his birthday. Now we're actually doing it right. We're doing it big time. I've already contacted the butcher. He remembers us from last year. He was excited. He's even more excited now that we have a nonprofit, so he can write it off on his taxes, which is awesome. Well, hopefully he'll be able to write it off on his taxes. Hopefully we get the 501 thing. But so we're doing it again this year. We have already raised about half of our goal. Our goal is $1,000. So we are looking to raise about another $500 in the, what do we have, like a week and a half, 2 weeks or so until the event. So if you are interested in one of two things, because we need both. We need people to come out and join me, bring their own sides and their own grills and, their own food, and to help with all of the logistics and everything going on, and to participate in helping and feeding people. So if you are in or around or can get to Dallas on September 4th, come join us in person. I would almost prefer that to a monetary donation. But if you can't join us in person, please consider donating to help us reach our goal of $1,000. You can find that on our website at voluntaryvirtue.org. There's a link at the top of the page that will take you to the event page with the links to donate. So that is our goal. Our goal, I think last year, our goal was 1,000, and I think we hit 1,200. This year, obviously, people have had a tough time of it, so I would not be surprised if we're not able to surpass our goal last year, and that's fine. I'm not looking to set records here. I'm just looking to do some good for my birthday, and with y'all's help, we're going to do it. So if you can, please join us there. Okay. So, Shepard, you had something that you wanted to talk about that you had going on.
Yeah, I wanted to add also that I have this thing that I can do where I pull my finger off, and I will show that to you. If you make a donation while we're on air right now, put in the comments how much your donation was, and if we get over $100 just during the show, I will show you how I pull my finger off, and that's really a big deal. So I would suggest you donate big, donate huge, at least $100. So Patrick, were you thinking of the face muzzle, or were you thinking of the other thing about the unintended consequences? Which were you thinking we should kick off with?
The essay contest. You wanted to talk about that, right?
Essay contest. Yes. So I am involved with Carl Watner's estate. Carl Watner, of course, has the website voluntarius.com, and Carl died late last year of cancer, and we're trying to carry on his website, keep things going, and there's some wonderful people that are making good donations to it. And we said, hey, how should we spend this money? And we thought, hey, let's do an essay contest or a story contest. So this is a contest. There's the word autarky, and there's the word anarchy. There's voluntarism. There's all the different words. So this particular essay contest is going to be autarky or anarchy. and the difference between the two and why one should use the one or the other. I tell you more about that, but I don't know because I haven't read the entries yet. So there will be a link, and if you are, I assume that you are on Odysee right now, I am going to put a link to that in the Odysee feed, and if not, it'll be in the general description. I'm posting it right now, and it's a way to make $150. If you're the winner, you get $150. Runner-up gets $20, and either way, it's a fun thing, and you're getting involved, and you're exercising your writing skills and sharing your brilliance with others. So please enter the contest. The link is in the notes on Odysee.
Yep. Okay. Also, two more cool things that we have going on that I want to tell you guys about. Universal Faith Bible Church. If you are looking to join a congregation because you might be in need of certain religious exemptions for certain reasons that are happening in real time in the world right now, we are starting a church for that purpose. You can find out more information about that on the Discord server for that church. You can join, if you want to get a link to the Discord, I don't have one handy for you, but you can join the Disenthrall Discord and we can definitely get you a link to join that server. We're working on the website now, but the information is not up there yet. It's going to be universalfaithbiblechurch.com. If you know anybody that wants to help out with that project, and what we're looking for are people that can teach sermons. We're looking for graphics designers, web administrators, people like that can help with the logistics that, frankly, I'm trying to help in as many ways as I can in terms of liberty and ways to help people find more freedom in their life, but I'm just overtaxed right now, and well, in many ways, taxed. Okay, you get it. But no, so I have too many things going on. I have too many things going on. So I do need help, especially with the church thing. I'm doing the best I can with the time that I have, but it's not enough. And there are people there. I've already been contacted by multiple people that are asking me to provide them letters from the pastor of the church to provide them to help them get religious exemptions from their employers. Guys, I need help on this project. So if you're looking to help people find liberty, that's something that you could help with your time. Like I said, graphics design, web design, logistics in terms of just like the clerical work of organizing people, finding forms that we can use to help people with these exemptions. And we also need people that can preach voluntarist, principled sermons that can and do relate to self-ownership and liberty and things like that, because we are going to be putting on, because this church needs to be as legit as possible for these letters to help people get these exemptions as effectively as possible. So these sermons, we want them to be principled and legit as much as possible. So if you know somebody that would like to give a talk or to be a guest pastor and give a sermon, please look us up on that. The last thing I want to say is that I have a batch of 20 of these masks left. Let me take this big. Right now I have a batch of 20 of them, 10 white, 10 black. If you're looking for one of these masks, you can check them out on disenthrall.me/shop, store, swag? I don't know. Check out disenthrall.me. I should have had that link ready. I apologize. And you can get one of this batch of masks here. Okay, so that's
you have two colors. You have one that's white, and you have others that are masks of color.
Yeah,
okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay, will you please? Okay, good.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Yeah. Yes. I was going to greet people by calling them 6'5" Creedmoors. Greetings, 6'5" Creedmoors. Welcome back to Disenthrall. Because Shepard is helping me. He's hooking me up with a lot of information on long-range shooting equipment. And we might have a cool trip coming soon where I might drive out to visit Shepard and get trained on what's the official term for it? Like long-range shooting, distance shooting, sniping? What's it called?
I don't like sniping because it has more to do with shooting people. So I don't like that term. I like long range shooting. Long range is generally considered out to, 1,200 yards or so. And then extreme long range shooting is from that point out to a mile or so. And then beyond a mile is considered extreme or extended extreme long range shooting. And that's the crazy stuff, shooting 2, 3, 4 miles. Out there. And the 6.5 Creedmoor is an awesome cartridge that's come out in the last 5 years. And I've had 5 shots in a row that didn't hit, but landed within 5 feet of a 1.25 mile target. So, and I tried again and didn't get that close. It's way beyond what it should do, but yeah, they're fun. They are fun. Definitely an easy 1 mile gun.
Farthest I've, what's a mile in yards?
1760.
Okay. Yeah, the farthest I've ever shot was maybe 150 yards, like at an outdoor range. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's more than most people haven't even shot. So that's good. It's a fun hobby to go out further.
I'm really, really looking forward to it. I'm going to pick up the rifle tomorrow, and I don't know. I may do videos on it. It might be fun. I don't know. We'll see. Okay, well, let's get into it. Now, this is like picking a topic out of a trash bag of garbage. I don't know where to begin, to be honest. Let's see. Okay. Let's start with the DOJ declaring that vaccine mandates are legal. Let's get into that. So they have declared that federal law does not prohibit public agencies or private businesses from requiring their people to be vaccinated. Now, the libertarian position on this is that public agencies are invalid, so I don't really care what they think about this stuff, and public agencies with opinions on what you are on the rules for whether or not you can be in their buildings don't really matter to us. But private businesses, on the other hand, that does matter. And there is an appropriate libertarian position on that. And the appropriate, consistent libertarian position is that it's up to the property owner. I mean, that's the answer to all these disputes from a libertarian, principled, voluntarist perspective. Who owns the property? What do they want? What are their rules for the property? And this has been a point of a lot of contention. It's this weird stuff happening lately, and this could just be on like Twitter. It could be limited to Twitter, but I don't think so. Like, there's these topics that come around like every 4 years in the sort of libertarian voluntarist space, where people just forget the arguments of why it's inconsistent with libertarianism to sort of force your will on property owners if it's a business, or some people forget that it's inconsistent with libertarian principle to be pro government border, and so every 4 years or 5 years these topics just kind of revolve back around, and we're like, okay, here we go again, let's talk through it again, 101, pull up your chairs. And so we're going to do that again in this show. I've talked about it many times, and we're going to keep talking about it every time it comes up, because that's what we do, and that's important. So let's start with the vaccinations. Our story begins at the Mises.org wire, where a guy named Mihai Makovi, I'm butchering his name because I'm from Texas and that's what we do, wrote this article called "Forced Vaccinations in France Bring Both Repression and Protest." And this article is mostly good. It just talks about the current events, what's happening with the vaccine requirements over there, the protests, how it is an attack on people's property and sort of self-ownership to enforce this stuff. Then they talk, let me just read a couple paragraphs at the end here, just to kind of set the stage, because this sets up the actual next thing that we're going to talk about. Rothbard defends the validity of his theory also in extreme cases, the so-called lifeboat situations, and the logic fits the COVID-19 pandemic as well. It was claimed that no theory of absolute inviolable rights could function properly in extreme crisis situations. However, Rothbard countered that the apparent war of all against all in a lifeboat situation is precisely due to the fact that the property rights have not been well defined. If the ownership and rules governing a property are clear, a nonviolent solution can be found even in a crisis situation. Although this solution may seem harsh to some and may not comply with all personal moral values, there is unfortunately no other principle of property allocation that would be more tolerable or could endorse a coherent human rights theory. The controversy and dissatisfaction raised by the extension of the government-mandated health pass in France proves once more the validity of Rothbard's theory. Conclusions. Far from being a ticket to freedom, as portrayed by President Macron, The government-mandated health pass is weakening further the French people's fundamental freedoms. It also creates an artificial division among vaccinated and unvaccinated people, causing resentment and undermining peaceful social cooperation. However, the new rules could still be reversed. This way, France would have a chance of living up to the famous slogan of its revolution. So there was a comment by somebody that read this article, and I'm assuming they're anonymous because their name is Bionic Mosquito. This comment was then picked up by Lou Rockwell, and an article was written. So let me read the comment, and then we'll move on to the article with the problem. So he's quoting the article when it says, "This does not mean that someone cannot be prevented from accessing certain venues or activities when their rightful owners set preventative sanitary rules." So this commenter is taking issue with that statement. He says, "Libertarians must really get past this kind of thinking. Does anyone believe that airlines, social media companies, mainstream media companies, any large company of any type is a private company in any meaningful sense? How quickly and suddenly they bow to government dictates, no matter how draconian, and what punishment will befall them if they don't? Willingly or through coercion, they do the state's bidding." That was their comment. That then spawned this article. Forgive me, Shepard, for doing a little reading here. I want to set the stage for the discussion.
I like it.
Okay, so this is written by the same person. This article is by the person that wrote that comment. He says, "This piece was about forced vaccinations. There is much about private property that isn't private. At one extreme, consider it the closest to a libertarian ideal. We have property acquired via voluntary transaction, either produced from other materials, acquired in trade, developed in code, etc. Yet, even at this extreme, try not paying property tax on the property or income tax on the privately earned income, etc. The property isn't purely private in the sense of the owner having complete control over use and disposition. At the other extreme, libertarians and Austrian economists will use the phrase crony capitalism. If this phrase is to mean anything, it has to indicate that the private property, necessary for a system of capitalism, has not been earned or acquired in a manner that fits the above definition of private property, acquired via voluntary transaction. Instead, it has been earned via government connection. Examples of this abound. Perhaps the most obvious is banking, especially money center banks. Others include military contractors, pharmaceutical companies, airlines, tech and social media companies, mainstream media, etc. It could also include any company or industry that petitions the state for something, as opposed to petitioning the state to not do something or to stop doing something. These crony capitalist companies do the state's bidding. They lobby for funds, lobby for regulations, and in exchange they pay the piper by dancing to his tune. They realize the consequences of just saying no. Why do such a thing when saying yes pays so well? Can the property that results from such an arrangement be described as private? There is a large area in between, of course. The most unfortunate, and taken from the last 16 months, any church or small business that did not enforce or abide by state mandates faced the potential of being crushed, and its pastor or owner faced prison. One cannot call this property private, though, through no transgression of the owner. But the entities that hold property via crony capitalism can in no way be considered holders of private property. They are extensions of the state, really, not much different than the military, Department of Injustice, the various spy agencies, etc. Conclusion. Libertarians really need not make the caveat, as was done in the statement I cited at the opening of this post. Instead, the proper caveat should be that much of what is considered private property isn't. Until this is fully embraced and understood, well, we are like the dupe falling for the con of the shell game. Complain about government encroachment and defend the so-called private entities that are just as much a means of that encroachment as any government employee. Yes, such libertarians may be following the right shell, but there is a second one virtually equally as dangerous to liberty. Okay, so that sets the stage for the discussion. The article that he's criticizing was not talking about the corporatist companies, first of all. So he's sort of, there's a little bit of a straw man afoot here in what he's criticizing, but that's not even what I'm really concerned about. What I'm concerned about is the thing that I see happening frequently amongst libertarians right now, where And we've talked about this several times in several past shows recently, and I'm going to keep talking about it until it dies, okay? So, and what I mean by that is the property owners, the rightful property owners' right to determine how they defend themselves against government coercion. If they choose to take sales tax when they sell you something and give that money to the government, that is them defending themselves from threats of imprisonment and up to and including death by the government if they don't. Now, you have a choice. Do you shop there at a place that dares be a collection agent for the government, or do you take your business elsewhere? You know going in what the situation is, and it's the property owner's right to choose how he defends himself. Notice I'm not using any contemporary examples. I'm using something that, every single person watching this has done, because it's the same argument. It's just that people are missing it when it comes to masks and vaccines, okay? Same thing for sales tax. The property owner, the person selling you stuff, is under threat of violence from the government if they don't collect sales tax on behalf of the gang in charge. If they choose to defend themselves, and some people would call this not self-defense, but complying is a form of self-defense. It is a way to not get dead when you're being accosted or threatened. So complying is a form of self-defense. It is them choosing a strategy for not getting dead from the gang threatening them. So if their chosen method of self-defense on their property, and the rule that they create on their property is sales tax is going to be collected if you shop here, you do not have a right to go on their property and attempt to buy something and subvert their rule for collecting sales tax. That's their property, and that's their choice to associate on those terms. This does not make them a state agent. This makes them a state victim. Your choice to shop there is still yours to make. You can go agorist and find somebody that will give you cash prices on stuff. Go do it. More power to you. That's awesome. I try and do it as often as I can. But if I go somewhere that does choose to defend themselves in that way, it's their property, it's their association. It would be wrong for me to force my requirements for that association on them. Do you have any comments on that, Shepard, before I continue? Do you have any thoughts?
I've got to say that I'm in this situation. My wife and I have a small business, and we are in a rock and a hard place. And one of my coaches today heard about an upcoming mask mandate and basically says, this is ridiculous. Let's not do it this time. And I said, do you want to make that decision that, we're not that big, but half a dozen human beings no longer have an income? Because if we do have to shut down, you guys aren't going to have an income. Is that really, truly what's best? And yeah, I hate being a little wimpy, weaselly, bow to the man kind of guy, collecting sales theft and paying income theft and all that. I hate that. But if I do choose to be the wimp that I am and not fight against the robber or the extorter, then yeah, kind of let me do my thing to protect myself as best I can. It makes sense.
And let me make the case even more strong. So even if there wasn't a gang threatening them, if you walked into their store and whatever you bought from them, they also added a 15% fee on top of, that's still their right to do, even if they kept the 15%. You know the rules going in for their property. That's the rules. So now let's take this scenario over to masks and vaccinations. If a building required, like I just walked in Dallas, this was rare. It was the first time I saw it because this is Dallas, but it was like a liberal coffee shop near my house. And they said, we allow our vaccinated patrons to come inside mask free. So I have a choice, an internal choice, and I can totally get away with it with a little white lie. I could choose to go on their property, and when they say, sir, you need a mask unless you're vaccinated, I could say, oh, I'm vaccinated, and they would not ask another question. And I could go about my day trespassing on their property and violating their consent for their association for their business. Or I could stand by my principles and say, that's unfortunate. I'm not vaccinated and I do not plan on wearing a mask. If you'd like my business, I'm happy to give it to you. Otherwise, I'm going to have to take it elsewhere. That's your choice, though. And saying it to them in that way reinforces that you are a good person actively looking to respect their property, but also taking a stand for what you think is right for your body. So you go somewhere else. The exact same argument. They have the right to set the rules for their property in whatever way they see fit, whether or not it's self-defense in the example of the sales tax versus them just charging a percentage. Forget government mandates, forget FDA-approved vaccines, forget all this stuff. A business could have 5 years ago said, if you don't have a flu vaccine, you got to wear a mask if you come in our store, and that would have been 100% their right to do. The fact that they're being threatened does not change that the fact that they have a right to control their property. So wanted to reiterate this because it's easy to forget when we're being subjected to tyranny in real time. It's easy to let our emotions bias us so much against the end results of our principles, being the inconvenience of not being able to shop or go where we want to go. It's easy to forget. So this is we're just reiterating, 101 property rights. And this is what we need to be doing for ourselves and for all of our friends, right? So that's what we're doing. This is not me. I'm not chastising any of you. We're talking through it again, right?
So, I love how a pal of mine who has a service dog put it several years ago. We went to a restaurant before the panic of 2020. We went to a restaurant and he takes his service dog in with him. And like 80 or 90% of service dogs, it's not really truly leading him around because he's blind or he has PTSD so bad that he's going to, die. And the restaurant owner comes over and says, let me guess, you're, service dog. And he says, yes. And he says, legally, I can have the dog in your restaurant, but you own this restaurant. And if you as a private business owner ask me to take it outside, I'll do it. If you just need legal coverage and you don't really care if he's in here, then I'd love to keep him. But if you personally really want him out, I'll take him out. And I really respected Tony. He was straightforward, looked the guy in the eye and was honest about it. So.
That is huge. My wife had the same thing. She has a trained medical assistant dog. And, when she finally completed, because it's not an easy training to go through with a dog, it takes a lot of work. She got the thing and, she got the little certificate, the official certificate from the government telling her that she had the right to take that dog wherever the hell she wanted. And, the first time she took it out, it's easy to not think about it. Like, you can just say, well, now I can take this dog in anywhere I go. I'm like, hey, hold on. If the restaurant doesn't want you having your dog in there, who gives a shit what the government says? Like, just because you got a fancy little piece of scribbles on paper doesn't mean you have the right to, it's about what the property owner wants at the end of the day, like you just said. Exactly. That's another great example. Let me get back to this article. I think there was a couple more things in here. Oh, yeah, it's this loss of private property status. The problem with this is that a business complying with these rules or setting self-defensive rules for their business does not lose them the rightful protection of private property. Like, you don't get to call them government agents because they choose to defensively enforce mask requirements or vaccine requirements for coming on their property. And I'm seeing this a lot, especially on Twitter, on Liberty Twitter, where they call them, they basically say, and he said it in this article, they're extensions of the state, really not much different than the military, Department of Injustice, the various spy agencies, etc. Okay, if I steel man his case for him, I can think of certain companies that do fit the description he's talking about, and I absolutely do agree that these companies have lost any claim of my respect for their rights and for their private property. Absolutely. There are certain companies that you can do that on. My point is that we have to be careful. This is a case-by-case thing. Ethics doesn't function on these collectives, on all corporations that do anything involved at all with the government. Suddenly you can start trespassing and you can steal from them, and it's no longer private property, it's public government invalid property, and you can't just do that willy-nilly. It's got to be case by case. It has to be very careful because you want to be the good guy, not the bad guy. You want to be the principled person, not just another statist thug. And if you're not careful making these kind of generalizations like we just read in this article, it's going to be real easy to just let yourself slip into being that thug that just says, oh, well, they're basically state agents, so I'm just going to trespass or do whatever the hell I want. Just be careful. Like, if it is one of these companies that is in cahoots with the government, yeah, fuck them. Yeah. do what you want, man. I really don't care. I don't think they deserve your respect for their property. But that's not most companies. And that's the statement that was missing from this article. Most companies are not like this. Most companies exist in a defensive stance. They don't go around trying to use the government to leverage on other people. Not even all big companies do it. Now, certainly, probably most of the biggest companies do. So anyway, my point is it's case by case. Take it case by case. Evaluate carefully. Evaluate empathetically. Like, imagine yourself working your entire life to build a big business and to do it in an ethical way. And then imagine some customer just assuming that because your business is so big, it must have been using government to coerce people to get that advantage. That would be wrong of you to do to that business. So evaluate case by case, individuals. Give them the benefit of the doubt unless you know differently, because you would want other people to do that for you if that was your business. I guess that's my point. Okay.
Amen.
Any final thoughts on that?
No, that's that. You're right on. That's, yeah. I'm biased, but you're right on.
You're biased towards or against?
No, I mean, as a small business owner who, like, it helps me to have this as my defense, but I think it is the true ethical, moral, philosophical choice. I mean, I think what you're saying absolutely makes sense. However, here's something I heard years ago. What about you're in the prison camp? The Nazis have you in the prison camp back in the 30s, and the guard takes pity on you and gives you a little piece of bread. Well, that bread's stolen property. The guard bought it with money that he got for his salary, which was tax money. So it's definitely stolen property, that bread. It's the state is giving it to you. Is it wrong to eat the piece of bread? And I don't know. I mean, these extreme edge cases are interesting. Do you accept stolen property if it's your only way to live? And if you do, if you're the business owner that chooses to do something, should I then be the one that outs you, or whatever you young people call that thing where you, not nerfing or something, where you vaccinate or vox.
Docs.
Vox.
You talking docs?
Docs, yes.
Docs.
Yes, doc. I don't know that that's cool to go out and mess with. I don't know that it's cool to go out and mess with some poor business that's making a different decision than you, but that's just trying to survive and hang in there.
Yeah. Phobia over on Float says, important point, you can believe that these businesses should not comply and also understand that it's their right to do so defensively and still be principally consistent. Yeah, exactly. Very well stated. Yes. Adam on Facebook says, Patrick, you're taking the fun out of anarchy. Sorry, man. Sorry. This is the difference between the Antifa mask-wearing so-called anarchists and actual principled anarchists. This is the difference we're talking about. Yeah.
We're the boring, geeky, intellectual, moral types. But it's fun, though. I love thinking about this stuff and working the brain out. It's fun.
Yeah. Rupert asks an on-point question. If the private business takes stolen money from the government, is it still private or is it a percentage? If they are a net tax theft beneficiary, then I have a lot less respect for their property rights because they're willing to be a party to they're willing to be a beneficiary of my extortion. So I care a lot less about them. You got to be careful though, man. You don't know what their unless you've looked at their tax returns and know what the finances are. You don't know if they're net tax, or you don't know if those tax benefits that they're getting are actually just tax breaks that balance out the books, and they're just trying to not be extorted. Like Amazon, not Amazon, Elon Musk. A lot of the tax benefits, so-called, that he gets are actually just tax discounts and tax breaks where he's actually just not paying taxes, and the lefties call those like tax deductions or something. The language they use is
subsidies,
meant to subsidies, tax subsidies, when it's just not paying taxes. Yeah, you got to be careful with the language, like case by case. Be careful. Like your default position, everyone's default position should be to try and respect other people's property rights to the greatest extent possible, knowing that we are just surrounded by this world that's coercive and full of government theft. So it's difficult, but it's possible. Do the best you can. That's what it is. Assume the best. Do the best you can. Okay. There's a lot of comments. Thank you guys for your comments. I'm struggling to keep up, which is awesome. Okay. Do you had something you wanted to ask or talk through with unintended consequences? Or should I move on to Snowden?
Let's talk Snowden.
Okay. So a lot of you have already heard this story, but there's a new one about Samsung that I wanted to talk about. Let me just bounce us out of the way here for a second. So a lot of you... It was
easy to get rid of me, wasn't it?
Yeah, boom. You're fired. Edward Snowden condemns Apple's plan to surveil iPhones, turned $1 trillion of devices into iNarcs. So Apple, for those of you that don't know, Apple is rolling out artificially intelligent image detection on all of their phones. So if you have an Apple phone, or maybe their new phones, pretty sure a lot of their phones, the newer phones. So any image that you take, any image that you download, including the ones that you might have in a browser if you're surfing a website, the AI will run that through its algorithm to decide if it is a naked picture of a child, and if it, in its artificially intelligent glory, decides that it is, your phone will tattle on you to the authorities with all of the repercussions that may or may not follow from that. And as with a lot of tyranny that comes through technology, it begins with attempting to predict or to protect children and end child pornography. This is a theme that has happened for 30 years now, 20 years now, that we've had the internet around, and CP is what I'll call it from here on out. CP has been a thing that exists on the internet, and most of the ways that they try and catch people sharing it, requires an erosion of your digital privacy. And that's just a blanket statement. They've done all sorts of things over the years. They've implemented all sorts of security, quote unquote, technology that allows them to better catch CP purveyors. And this is the latest. The problem is that those technologies never just stay trying to catch the CP purveyors. So step one is all of your iPhones get a little AI on them that scan your images for CP. What do you think step two is? What do you think they scan for next? Could it be memes? Wrong think memes? Extremist memes? Harmful extremist content? Just to protect us from terrorist activity, keep everybody safe. Or to, track your social credit score. Or, these kinds of things. Like, it never just stays with, what it's initially billed for. And so he's very right in that they're turning, $1 trillion of devices into little iNarcs. Even if you're on board with giving up a little bit of your privacy and trusting an AI on your phone for the purposes of catching CP traders. Even if you're okay with that, you're probably not going to be okay with step 2 and 3 and 5 in 20 years. When it's way more pervasive and scans for a lot more things, for safety's sake, safety-ness. Yeah, like, look, if they find out that you're okay with them running an AI on your phone to check the images, well, then what's your complaint going to be when they want to run an AI on your phone to check all your messages on all of your apps for, what they deem to be drug transactions or gun transactions or literally anything that becomes illegal in the future? Like, if you allow this, then what's your argument against that? It's illegal, so why would you not want us to put an AI on it if CP's illegal? Yep.
And it is that, there's something in logical fallacies. There's the slippery slope fallacy. However, everything that's slippery slope is not necessarily a fallacy. And I think that there's good reason to believe that these things start out. Oh, the traffic cams are just so we can keep pace and see what the flow of traffic is. And then later it's like, well, okay, well, we're doing it, in the old people, we have a gray alert, somebody has Alzheimer's, we're doing it to help them get back to their families. Well, okay, well, Amber Alert, somebody kidnaps a kid. Holy cow, we've got to use these cameras for that. And like, well, hey, you don't want people running meth. We got to get them. What about these people with these, 30-round magazine clips in their AR-14s? Like, we've got to stop them. And then it just continues and continues. And it's that incremental steps only in one direction. Never rolls back.
And we can scare all sides of the political spectrum with this. Let's assume that, a new orange man, a worse orange man comes into office 10 years from now, because the left has just pushed everything so far and so fast to the left that they're starting to create literal Nazis, and one of them wins office. Let's just say, okay? And let's say that they pass a law that requires an AI to be on everybody's device to scan for LGBT content so that parents can keep their kids safe, just in case they might be getting infected with the gay. Okay? Same thing. If you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile. Another example would be, this is from a tweet by Sarah Lewis. A robot sits in your house just to observe everything that happens there. The robot's observations are compared to crimes in known crimes databases using special cryptography so your privacy is protected. But if it detects too many crime-like events, the authorities are contacted. This is coming. And Apple is leading the charge. If you are using an Apple device, I don't even know what to tell you anymore, because these stories have been coming out like this for 10 years. Guys, please, you can't be that lazy so as to not want to try an Android. But wait, Samsung makes some of the fanciest Android devices, and they have I don't have a story pulled up, but the story is breaking right now, where one of the things that people do to have low-level access to their phone to be able to do whatever they want to it is they'll unlock the bootloader, is what it's called. It's like step one to sort of obtaining full admin access to your phone on an Android. Samsung, the new phones, if you unlock the bootloader, if you take that step one to having greater access to your phone, they're disabling the cameras on the phone. They say it's for security and to protect your privacy and to make your phone more secure, but no, you're going to be punished if you start taking more low-level control of your devices. So watch out for Samsung too. If you're looking to buy a phone in the near future, you might want to look elsewhere. Definitely stay away from Apple, but probably stay away from Samsung too. They are definitely no longer, if they ever were, trustworthy. So
there's that guy that's popping up on advertisements, the de-Googled phones, middle-aged guy of Asian descent. Yeah. What do you think of those? You're a tech dude. Is that a good thing?
Yeah. If you can put up with it depends. It's a case by case, man, for everybody. So it all comes back to threat modeling. So if what you're doing requires being safe from the random hacker kitty living next door, then it's pretty easy to defend against that. And the steps that you need to take to defend against that are not inconvenient at all. It's just like basic level 1 stuff. If your threat model is defending against big tech, that's much more difficult. Not impossible and not super inconvenient, but it does require using alternate services and de-Googled phones. De-Googled phones are not going to have full access to the app marketplaces that Googled phones will have. There's a lot of apps that won't function properly on those phones. So then it comes case by case. Does your job require you to have access to Facebook, for example? Because Facebook doesn't run on some de-Googled devices. Not all, but some. So different apps, depending on what you have to use and what you're willing to give up, will or will not run for you on a de-Googled phone. So it's just a decision that you have to make. Another option that people don't think about for this threat modeling stuff is that you can have 2 phones. You can have your main phone that's a Googled phone that runs your spyware on, And you can just only run the spyware on that phone by itself and only do what you need to do on that, knowing who's probably watching and monitoring it. And then you can have your de-Googled phone that has your communication apps, your Signal, your Telegram, your, all the apps that you really care about using, but that you don't want anywhere near a Google device. You can just have and use 2 devices. And if you need to use Facebook, you go and find your Facebook device. And you can only pay for 1 internet connection. Like you can have, your de-Googled phone can share its internet, and you can connect to its Wi-Fi from your Googled phone or something like that. I wouldn't do it the other direction. I wouldn't have the Googled device giving the de-Googled phone. Anyway, this gets complicated, but yeah, there's ways to do this. Pick your threat modeling, pick your poison, choose how inconvenienced you want to be in exchange for how important privacy is to you. Yeah, this stuff exists.
Well, I'm not doing anything wrong, so I don't have anything to worry about.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so that was the phone story that I wanted to talk about. The next story I want to talk about, I'm just going to play this video sort of in the background while I go through it. This is an update on a story. A viewer that subscribed to our channel back when we covered this story has been subscribed ever since, gave me this update, so I'm just going to play the video in the background. A lot of you will remember, I did like 6 hours of content, and I did many hours of research bringing you updates on the story of the Houston group of police that wrote an invalid warrant, raided I think it was the wrong house at the time, murdered a man and his wife in the house, and well, they're getting away with it scot-free. That's the update on the story. So the prosecutors just dropped charges against the officer who admitted to shooting Dennis Tuttle, because he was just doing his job, and any reasonable police officer, when they were breaking into someone's house and were met with a homeowner pointing guns at them, would murder them. And, that's just to be expected. So even if the person was innocent and that they were at the wrong house, it doesn't matter. They still have the right to murder you. If you try and defend your house and your property. So, this is the quintessential case against the police. You can't say that police are your protectors if they can just literally barge into your house and murder you anytime they want and have the charges dropped and be called. They called this guy like a hero was being chastised or prosecuted over this. Like they were taking it like they were offended that this guy was even charged with the crime, when this Goins guy in the middle here, Gerald Goins, he was like the commanding officer. I did a lot of content on here. Anyway, I don't want to tell the story again because I did like 4 hours of video on it. You can go and watch those videos if you want to know just how effed up this man is. But these people are literally responsible for the murder of a man and his wife. Like just straight up. That is a factual description of what happened that day. There's yeah, these guys. These are the 2 that were murdered. So, that's the update. Shepard, as a former police officer, what do you think? What do you even? I'm not. Let me. This is not an accusatory thing. That's not what I meant. I just like having been on the other side of that. Like. I don't know.
It's a broken system. And if you agree to participate in a broken system, then you know that things are going to go wrong. So if you're a crane operator and you have the wrecking ball at the bottom of it, and every so often you know that part of the system is the wrecking ball starts swinging around and you can't control it, well, you need to quit your job. You need to tell your boss, hey, this thing is out of control. Let's put it down until we get it fixed. And if the boss says, no, go use the wrecking ball, then you need to quit your job. Because if not, the wrecking ball is going to swing crazy and kill somebody. And that's kind of how this is. And I think it's kind of similar to the excuse that some people will say, brothers in arms, I'm not there to hurt the other people. I'm just there with my partner, and nobody's going to hurt my partner on my watch. I've got nothing against these people, but when my brother breaks into their house to do something to them, and they're trying to kill my brother, I'm not going to let them kill my brother. Well, does that also hold true for the Crips and Bloods and the 18th Street Boys? No, I didn't want to. I was just in the house because my brother was going in there to rape and kill everybody. I didn't want to rape and kill anybody. I was just there with my brother. And then when they tried to knife him, well, yeah, of course I had to kill him. I had to save my brother. Well, no, your system is broken. You're in a gang of rapist thugs, or in the cop situation of murderous thugs in this example. And yeah, it's a broken system. And I completely hear where they're coming from, that no, if we have a call and we have to go in and do something, like we have to go in there, and then if somebody tries to shoot at us, what are we supposed to do? Just say, maybe we have the wrong house, let's let them kill us. So I think a handy thing to do is look at it from a private security standpoint. If this wasn't a government law enforcement, what if the call, and I'm changing the scenario. If the call was, there's a woman screaming, he's raping me, he's beating me, and you're the private security company, you and me, we rush over there and we knock on the door and there's no answer. We try to look through the windows and we can't see anything. And we try calling and we're like, how long do we wait? What if he is currently strangling her? Do we kick the door in? And then we kick the door in and we go in, and all of a sudden we see some guy pointing a shotgun at us. What do we do? If we are private, legitimate, good security, do we just say, maybe wrong house, go ahead and shoot us both? Or do we say, hey, we can't say, hey, because there's a guy aiming a gun at us. We got to take him out. So I don't know. It's partially, I guess it kind of depends on if there was the original thing that happened was legitimate. Was it somebody that heard somebody screaming, I'm being raped, I'm being raped? Or was it that the person had some marijuanas or Zimas or meths or whatever they shouldn't have had, according to the state? And if that's the case, then, hey, you should have started the fight. If it was for a good reason and it was you and me doing my scenario, I don't know. What should we do? Sometimes you have to confront bad. And I think from those cops' perspectives, not a single one of them woke up in the morning thinking, hey, I hope today I have an excuse to kill somebody. No, they are stupid cogs in a machine. I don't know that those particular ones were stupid, but they were cogs in a bad machine. They shouldn't be in that machine.
Yeah, I just want to play this.
To be able to explain that I'm not the bad person that I'm being painted to be.
Hardin says his client, Gallegos, doesn't dispute the fact that he shot Dennis Tuttle during the botched raid, but contends Gallegos and other officers had no idea that case agent Gerald Goins allegedly falsified a warrant.
Grand jury, at the request of the district attorney's office, indicted a hero.
Flanked by a team of lawyers and the office.
Yeah, so he doesn't even believe he was the bad guy. I would love to one day figure out the secret code that I need to communicate with police officers to get through to them. But even after all this, years later, still doesn't believe he was the bad guy, thinks they're prosecuting a hero. Is there any way to get through, or do we just write him off, Shepard?
No. I've heard a lot of people over the years have said to me, hey, you're kind of, into liberty a little bit, and you're also a former cop. What do you think about this program or that program? And the closest I've found is the Thick Red Line. I think that project is the closest. But there's certain people you can't convince. I was just listening to The New Right by Michael Malice, and it was reconfirming this point that there are some people that just, you can't have a discussion with them. It's not like they're open to having that discussion. You just have to write them off and say, as George Carlin did, you think of the average person and how stupid they are. Well, just know that half of the people out there are stupider than that. And I think that sometimes you just have to say, this person is a brainwashed person who is not going to look at things openly and rationally, and they're making 60, 70, 80 grand a year from the people who are telling them one perspective, and you come with your marijuana's hanging out of your cigarette mouth and the long hair and your hippie van. Why are they going to listen to a dirtbag like you when somebody else who is very honorable and respectful is telling them the other thing. So, yeah, I don't think it's worth arguing with them. They're not the people to convince. I think 60 to 80% of cops, 60 to 90%, get up each morning, go out, do their thing. They really, truly think that they're being overworked because they put in a 41-hour week last week, had to work that overtime. They really, truly think that they have a dangerous job. Never mind the construction workers and the loggers and the real people who have dangerous jobs. They really, truly believe. When I was a cop, I really, truly believed, gosh, I'm out here to help you people tonight. I'm going to patrol. I'm deterring people from hurting anybody. And when something happens that's so bad you can't solve it, who are you going to call? This 24-year-old guy, and I'm going to come solve your problem, and I'm here to help. I'm the final line, and my safety is important. That's what I believed. And I think that's what most believe, and they're misguided humans. Don't like them. Wish they would change. But I also, they're special, and you don't pick on special kids, is what my mom told me.
Okay. Oh wow, I can't say anything else after that. Let's talk about something hilarious. All right. So this is a Vice.com article, ladies and gentlemen. The first time I've seen a Vice article worthy of spending any time on in a long time. The headline is Socialist Publication Current Affairs Fires Staff for Doing Socialism. We were fired by the editor-in-chief of a socialist magazine for trying to start a worker co-op. 5 fired staffers wrote in a letter posted on Tuesday. Let's just read this lovely little article. The editor-in-chief of the socialist magazine Current Affairs has fired most of its staff for trying to start a worker co-op, workers wrote in a letter. Quote, we, the former full and part-time staff, write to you with deep sadness and disappointment about the recent events that have occurred at Current Affairs. A letter signed by 5 fired staffers said, on August 8th, editor-in-chief Nathan Robinson, author of Why You Should Be a Socialist, unilaterally fired most of the workforce to avoid an organizational restructuring that would limit his personal power. Yes, we were fired by the editor-in-chief of a socialist magazine for trying to start a worker co-op. I mean, it's socialism for me and not for thee. It's just the same story again.
Well, they're doing important work, though. At that organization, they can't be bothered with sticking to their principles. I mean, they've got to get important news out to people. It's different, Patrick. You just don't understand. You just don't understand.
Quote, when we finally got around to discussing organizational models during a Zoom meeting on August 7th, Nathan became agitated. He stated that in our attempt to set shared internal values, we were disregarding his vision for the current affairs as published in the first issue, the letter said. The next morning, he started removing people from the company Slack and sent letters requesting resignations, eliminating positions, and in some cases, offering new honorary titles which would have no say in governance. Yeah, so, I mean, if you start, like think about it from an owner's perspective. You start a company, you have a vision for the company, you have a goal you want to accomplish and a way you want to accomplish it, and then the people that you trust and hire and associate with suddenly start trying to redirect that vision and change your plan and change your goals and the way you're going to achieve them and inserting themselves into the decisions that you never asked them or consented to them being, being a part of. Of course you want to get rid of them. Of course. And of course you have the right to not associate with them anymore. Unless you write a book called How to Be a Socialist.
So are you kind of saying that since Disenthrall is your show, if right now I insisted that you cut to half an hour of bowling highlights and you didn't want to, that you could just tell me no and completely disregard my feelings?
Yes.
Yeah, it's your freaking channel. You get to do what you want. This is your property.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, no, it's just hilarious. This is one of those little highlights of my day. It's a little fun in the midst of a garbage pile. Okay, well, that's so. I have two bonus topics that we don't have to go into. I don't know. We can. Closed borders libertarians, which is another one of those revolving things that comes around every 4 or 5 years, and a tweet that I made on the tweet was some red flag phrases that dropped my evaluation of the medical advice coming from a source to near zero. And I said, the science is settled. Vitamin C cures cancer. COVID has never been isolated, purified, or cultured. Viruses don't exist and cause disease. Trust the science. And I knew this was going to trigger people on both sides when I posted it. But I did it anyway, because I think that's what you're supposed to do on social media, right? Is annoy people.
It's trigger time.
So how about this? We'll make a poll for the audience. Would you guys like me to talk about the current closed borders libertarian debate? Or would you guys like me to talk about red flag medical phrases? If you would like to do closed borders, put number 1 in the chat. If you would like me to do medical stuff, give me a number 2 in the chat. Oh, Shepard says number 1. He already voted. Man, he's fast.
And I'm on Odysee, which is the shizzle. It's like the new thing that's replacing not Facebook, the tube of views, YouTube. Odysee is like the cool hip new do what you want on their thing. So that's where I made my vote.
Cop block. You can't do 12. Okay, goddamn anarchist audience. He types 12.
I want number 3.
Follow
Number 3.
instructions. Do as I say.
These man. People are trying to unionize, Patrick. What the heck?
Oh no! Quick, fire them. Wow, it's mixed. It's like half and half. Voluntary Dan says 21. Oh man, so the poll thing was not helpful at all. I got 12, 21, 6, 6, 6, and then half and half 1s and 2s. So, wow, that was useful or useless.
Here, I'll settle it. I'll make it easy. So between 1 and 2, yes. So hopefully that was helpful. Let's do that.
All right, fine. I'm gonna go with 666.
Okay, good. 666.
Let's go with that one.
Number
I guess that
3.
means both.
Number 3.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Let's start with let's do borders. So this has come up again mainly because Dave Smith has declared himself the leading spokesperson for libertarianism in an insane video I saw recently, and he's also not for open borders while the government still exists. And there's been a lot of people saying a lot of silly things on Twitter, like libertarian principle is for once we're already free, and then we can worry about following those principles. Shepard, if I asked you, is there anything wrong with the phrase, we can worry about implementing those libertarian principles once the government is gone, once we're already free, what would you say?
I think that's ridiculous. And having been a former crimes against children detective, I would ask this question. Should we also wait to kind of retaliate against child molesters until there is no longer a state? Or if something is bad today, should we do something about it today? If something is good today, should we do something about that today? And I would say that the third party, the bad guy, mafia, government, whatever organization it is that's trying to rule our lives, that shouldn't change what we as good human beings choose to do today. And today, I choose not to punch a baby in the face, and that's my choice, whether there's a government or not. And I choose not to, as Larkin Rose would say, if somebody's walking between one tree and another tree, you have a right to go and use force to stop them. Well, what if there's an imaginary line between those two trees called a government line? No, that is not right to do today. And so today, I'm not going to do that. And I don't care whether there's a state or not. That's just, isn't that just morality? Isn't that just being a good person? I don't know.
If we're going to approach it from like a logical proof perspective, then you would you would point out the break in the logic by saying it is contradictory to use libertarian principles to declare yourself not free, but then say we shouldn't use those principles to live by. It's like, okay, if those principles are not enacted now, then you might as well call yourself free. Like, what's the problem? Like, why? What? All of your claims to not being free are based on those principles that you are using to declare yourself not free, but then not using to live by or to behave by. That's kind of contradictory, isn't it? That's not really consistent, is it? Like, if you're going to call yourself a slave by a rule, then you should use that rule to govern how you behave. Like, an example with slavery, the strongest example would be, if a principle says that you're a slave, then that means that you can attack the person that is attempting to control you and be your owner. Well, if we should only enact our principles once we're free, well, you're not really a slave and you can't really defend yourself or really attack that slave owner because those principles are for later once you're already free. What are you people even saying? Like, are you just saying words that justify your positions? Guess what? Spoiler. That's exactly what's happening. They want to keep the border closed to protect their culture. A lot of people, a lot of libertarians have this feeling that they want to protect the culture, and they have a personal prediction that if a bunch of foreigners come in their country, they're going to vote it to be a more socialist country, which is going to move them farther away from liberty. Might be the case. Unfortunately, according to the principles that we're trying to achieve, you don't get to control your neighbors unless they're aggressing against you. You don't get to control people traveling across property that you don't own. And then they say, well, we're all stolen from to pay for these roads and all these resources that these foreigners that don't get stolen from get to come in here and use. And so we have a right to think of it like a corporation. I've heard this argument a couple times. You can go all the way back to my rebuttal of Christopher Chase Rachel's book based on Hoppe's work, where they say that the net taxpayers have sort of a communal right to vote to control how the stolen property is used until such time as we're free and we've, received restitution for the state's theft of us. So it's like they've taken all of the stolen property that the government's taken from us, and they've decided that they can sort of make that into some sort of communal property, and then they can decide to institute voting rights for that stolen property. And, whoever gets the most votes wins, and that's how the stolen property gets rightfully used, because the property owners are having a say in how their stolen property is used, which is clearly better than not having any say at all. So
it gets so messed up when the government gets involved. Like, this quibbling it's because somebody got involved and started telling people what to do and taking their money from them. And then it causes, like, if I'm going to look for 7 billion people and I'm going to pick the top million that I want to pick on, Dave Smith isn't one of them. Lou Rockwell is not one of them. Even some of the little bit out there, Stephen Molyneux isn't even one of my top million people that I would want to attack at this point. He did a lot of good work, and that's not who I'm going to choose as my enemy. But the government and the cathedral, get us to argue with each other about these things. And yes, I think it's a good, true point you're making. It's frustrating that we are arguing amongst ourselves rather than attacking the worst million. We're attacking part of the best million out there, not attacking. That's how science works, social science or any other science. You get a paper, or in this case, a comment that somebody makes, and then you have the peer review of it, and you say, hey, is this a good thing? And you tear it apart, and that's a good thing. People should do that for you and for me and for everyone. But I think it comes down, I think the bigger point is that it's a principles versus pragmatism argument. Mm-hmm. And if you place pragmatism ahead of principles, do you want a bunch of people who don't shower every single morning, who have long hair that's not pretty and blonde? Do you want these people coming onto your land and going to your schools for free and eating your cheese for free? Well, of course not. Well, that's the pragmatic central planning argument. And I think you, and I certainly prefer to look at the principle of it and say, if we take care of the means, the end will take care of itself, rather than Dave Smith's argument that the ends justify the means. I think those are two contradictory points, and I choose the Gandhi/Karl Wapner choice of, if we take care of the means, the ends will take care of themselves.
Agreed. So the only way that this argument that I'm talking about, this Christopher Chase Rachel's argument, collectively stolen property, therefore we get to vote to control it argument works, is if, let's say, we had a town with a mafia in it, and the mafia stole a little bit of money from every single person in the town. And every single person in this town got together and agreed, universally, to the man, all of them agreed that they would all participate in a voting process that for some reason the mafia was willing to listen to. And they would get to vote to choose how their stolen money was used. And all of the owners of that money that had it stolen from them agreed to this voting process. And they all voted, and the vote gave a result, and then the mafia followed the vote and did what the vote said to do with the stolen money. Is that voting process legit, according to libertarian principle? Yeah, sure. Because why? Because all the property owners agreed. But if even one of the property owners disagreed, dissented, and said, no, I don't agree to that weird voting process you're doing for the stolen money. I don't agree with this mafia stealing the money, and I also don't agree with you guys voting to control my stolen money. I just want my money back. Thanks. Then the voting process becomes invalid the moment it tries to control that dissenter's stolen money. So the exact same situation happens for the land and the borders and all of these sort of collectivized victim voting libertarian types arguments. It's the exact same argument. I don't consent to all of these other victims voting to control my stolen property or my stolen land or access to my property, stolen or otherwise. Sorry, you don't get that right. I don't give it to you. That makes me exempt. That means that if you guys try and do that anyway, if you guys try and vote to control the borders, thinking that you have justified reason to do so, you don't. You become a bad guy, a lot like the mafia, also doing the same thing, controlling access and travel to and from my property and controlling my ability to leave and come back without being accosted at the border. You become a bad guy just like them. Don't do that. That's not consistent with libertarian principle.
Amen. And even if we... Go ahead.
No, I was going to move on. Go ahead.
And I would even take the pragmatic argument. And I'm going to speak to the person out there who, just to make numbers easy, let's say you're making $100,000 a year and you're having 24% of that taken from you, stolen from you as income theft. So your $24,000 that is taken from you by the government to help support them mess cans that you're so worried about, and then them Arabs and all them people that are upsetting you that Fox News has got you all riled up about. Do you really think that if all the borders were immediately closed, that you would get a letter from the IRS in a few weeks saying, whew, we don't have to send these illegal immigrants' kids to school anymore, and we don't have to give cheese to these people and pay unemployment and medical stuff. Good news. Next year, when you make $100,000, you don't have to pay $24,000. You only have to pay $16,000. Do you really honestly think that your theft burden, or some people call it your tax burden, do you really think it's going to be lessened if the imaginary borders are suddenly closed? And this is pragmatic. This isn't principle. Come on.
Yeah. Will says, hey guys, always glad to see another Shepard and Patrick collab. He says, you guys are the Bert and Ernie of anarchy.
Is that a good thing? I don't know. That's a Street of Sesame thing, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if that's a good thing. Okay. Yeah. So, another Twitter thing. This is another take on the same issue. Jeremy Kaufman says, either open borders will make the country more libertarian or it is incompatible with libertarianism. That's his statement. So what he's saying here, what he appears to be saying, and I'm not trying to Kathy Newman him, is that things that make the country more libertarian are compatible with libertarianism, and things that do not, or make the country less libertarian, are incompatible with libertarianism. That's a hard disagree for me. Like
that's a means justify the ends argument, isn't it?
Yes, consequentialism. Absolutely. Yeah. So if I murder someone today that is doing bad things, tomorrow the country will probably be a small amount more libertarian than it was before when this bad person was not doing bad things.
We're arguing with a brilliant dude. I wish he could come on and live argue it. Like, I would sit down, because this guy is the shizzle. I'm being hip, by the way. Yeah.
So a thing that I've said a lot of times on Twitter lately, and this is really why I wanted to get to it. I don't want to rebut Jeremy without him being here, because he'd probably come on for it. But a thing that I've posted like 4 times in the past 3 days is, your personal predictions on the future do not justify supporting the subjugation of innocents now. Your personal predictions do not justify attacking innocents today. Other people doing bad things do not justify you doing bad things. Other people creating victims do not justify you creating your own victims. You can't use other people's bad behavior to, this is like kindergarten stuff, but it's just, again, it's just coming back around in the libertarian thought space right now. And so I'm trying to expel it again. Whatever the Harry Potter spell for that is. Patrick said, so I said, your personal predictions on the future do not justify supporting the subjugation of innocents now. Patrick said to the vaccine mandators, the welfare proponents, the Iraq war proponents, and the, checks notes, closed border libertarians. You don't get to predict bad things are coming and hurt innocent people now because of it. That is not consistent with libertarian principle. Unless you're a consequentialist, which is the same thing as saying absent of morality. Yeah. Anyway, so I guess that was the borders. Any questions on the borders? Did I handle that properly? Voluntary Dan on Odysee says Dave Smith doesn't speak for me or anyone else for that matter. That's exactly what I thought when I heard him say that. I was kind of shocked when he said that. This is what the Libertarian Party does to people. It's like they get enough popularity and clout that they start to, I don't know, get remotely connected to the principles at the base of things. Like, dude, just because the party, gives you a lot of followers, because there's a lot of people that think that's an effective means of creating liberty in the world, man, it does bad things to people. That whole thing does bad things to people.
I agree, and I go back to Carl Hess, Carl with a K. Carl Hess's, he had this great YouTube thing that I can't find now because I'm not real sharp, but he basically said in it that of all the people I'm going to go, this is what I said earlier, of all the people I'm going to pick a fight with, it's not going to be the capital L libertarians. Like, they are so many heads above Kim Jong-un and Biden and whoever, Trump, whichever one of them is president, or Camille or whatever. Like, they are so far ahead of them or the other 6 billion people in the world. Like, they're at least thinking, and they've considered liberty, and they're trying to work it out in their heads. And sometimes they think they have it all figured out, and they don't. But at least they're thinking about it and working on it. And I want to say, brother, I think you're wrong on this one. Let's have another beer and argue about it. But I'm still going to call them brother, because I consider them to be a fellow traveler that is disagreeing with me. I think I'm right, but they probably think they are. And let's hash it out and see what's up. And it's up to us to keep them honest.
Phobia on Float says, "Oh, Shep, you'll get used to the libertarian infighting soon enough."
Well, I just got into this a couple of weeks ago, so I haven't been jaded yet. So maybe I will in time.
Don't let it jade you. Just ignore the really nasty people. But I have like a healthy respect for the infighting. It's how we as libertarians have refined our principles by fighting over them.
Science works.
For 50 years. Like, if we hadn't been fighting over this stuff and hashing it out and debating and writing opinions and taking people down, like, we wouldn't have advanced the ideas of liberty nearly as far. So there's a lot of good that comes out of it. Now, there's a lot of shitheads that are just worthy of just being ignored. So, do a little of both. A little column A, a little column B. Okay, so here we go. We're okay. So this was my thing. So I don't know which of these things people want me to talk about. The science is settled. If anybody looks at me and says the science is settled, do as I say, or do what you're told. The science is settled. I just disregard their opinion. I don't think that's a controversial statement with this audience. Vitamin C cures cancer, I hope isn't a controversial statement with this audience. There's a lot of alternative health people that have given me every manner of bad advice for my daughter's health situation and treatment over the past several years. And this is probably the worst of the advice that I got. If I had stopped her treatment and tried to cure her leukemia with vitamin C, I would not have a daughter today. And it really bothers me personally when people spout bad medical advice without knowing the risks. You're playing with other people's lives. Like if I were to convince somebody to not take their cancer treatment and just load up on high dose vitamin C, I feel like I would have their death on my hands. I mean, I wouldn't literally, but personally, aesthetically, I would probably never sleep well again. Anyway, so I hope I don't have to explain further on that one. You guys can let me know. I am an Archer fan, Will. I love that cartoon. I haven't seen the last 3 years of it, though. I know there's a lot of weird stuff. I need to catch up on it. The alternate timeline stuff I haven't seen yet. Okay. Then we have, let's skip this one. Viruses don't exist or cause disease. This is...
What are you, retarded? So I know you're not retarded, but what are you, Down syndrome?
So, there's pictures of viruses. So, like, this is layman level evidence that anybody, you can go and look up right now. Electron micrography. There's electron micrographs. You can take an electron microscope, zoom in on a virus, and capture an image of it. You can see them. Not only that, but if you take a lot of electron micrographs and put them together back to back, you can create a video showing viruses attacking a cell, invading the cell, duplicating inside the cell, and then bursting out, exploding, and destroying the cell in their process of replicating themselves to then go on to destroy all the adjacent cells in the same way. You can see, it's like, picture it didn't happen. Okay, here's a pic. Like, you can see video of this. This evidence is easily obtained for even the layman. You can go and get it. You can go borrow an electron microscope and take pictures if you want. Like, it would take some effort and some learning and some know-how to get to that level of expertise, but it can be done, and you can look at it. So when somebody tries to claim that viruses don't exist, like, instantly, I'm sorry, you have what's the phrase? You're so open-minded, your brain fell out. Like, then the next one is a lot of wrapped up in terrain theory. And look, I'm not a medical expert, so I'm not going to go into this a lot. But if you can look at video of viruses destroying cells en masse, and you don't think that mass cell destruction can cause disease, I mean, like, again, we're in the layman realm of understanding, and I think it's pretty easy to understand how a lot of cells being killed can hurt you. Like, you don't want that to happen, and it might do something bad, like maybe cause disease symptoms. Like, okay, so hopefully I haven't been too dismissive, aside from the joke, the Norm joke. Yeah, so hopefully I've addressed that one. The next one, trust the science. If somebody, this is like the science is settled. This is the same thing. Trust the science. Never trust the science. The best scientists never trust the science. All the major scientific discoveries and revolutions are precisely because people didn't trust the science, and they kept looking and they kept digging deeper. Don't blindly follow anyone. Find people that have done a lot more work than you, that are much smarter in their fields than you, and take their advice under more consideration than other people. This goes to, I think we've talked about, you and I have talked about this before, right? Like, who is the expert over your life? Which expert do you follow? You're the expert. It's your job to decide for yourself what medical treatments you involve yourself with, right? It's your job to find which experts are the ones you're going to follow. What do you think?
Yes, and I'm going to push back a little bit on things being settled. I don't believe in the whole, the climate has been exactly the same for the last 80 billion years, and suddenly I bought a diesel truck and now all the baby seals are dying. I don't buy that stuff. And so there's this whole, the science is settled, climate change, global warming and cooling is happening, and blah, 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 climate is settled. Yeah, I don't buy that. However, I kind of do buy that libertarians, as you mentioned a little bit ago, have been hashing out certain issues for 50 years, and we've pretty much come to the conclusion that we shouldn't walk up to a little baby and punch the baby in the face. That's kind of settled. We haven't completely figured out borders yet, so that's still kind of open for more argument.
Much to my chagrin.
There's still different perspectives there, but there aren't really a lot of people coming out and saying, hey, maybe we should punch more babies in the face. So we could say that that's settled. Now, we could be wrong. Maybe we should punch babies in the face, and maybe some research in the future we'll look at principles and morals and ethics, and we'll say, okay, maybe we should be doing that. But at the moment, that is kind of sort of settled, and I can see how it would make sense for physical scientists, not just social scientists, but those in the physical world, to say, okay, we've pretty much concluded that leaves are green because of photosynthesis, and there's gravity, and it sucks stuff down toward where your shoes are, and even a layperson can kind of go, okay, yeah, I'll go along with that until you come up with something better. So I don't know. I don't know what the term settled, not 100%, but 99.9. Now, I don't believe that the whole Branch Covidian panic of 2020, I don't think any of that junk is settled. It's obviously a propaganda. If you know propaganda, you don't look at it as a medical issue.
Yeah.
So that's not settled. But I think some things can be fairly settled.
It's the next thing I want to talk about leads straight into this, which is COVID has never been isolated. This is something that you're hearing from a lot of libertarian types right now. And this goes into like a phenomenon that I've noticed with the left. I mean, it's the left. The left is pushing society off the rails right now. That's why it's them. I'm sure it could go in the other direction, and I'd be saying the same thing about the right. But but it's happening with the left right now is that they are pushing society so far and so fast to the left that they're making real victims. They're starting to force their ideology on everyone around them, which is starting to piss people off. And when you piss people off, you create resistance. And what tends to happen in humans, the human species, is that resistance is going to take the most extreme position possible opposing the problem. So if the left is pushing left ultra fast, they're going to create new literal Nazi types that didn't exist before to stand in opposition to them. They are going to create the enemy that they're claiming has existed all the time and really hasn't. They're going to create it. And the people on the right are going to go too far in their attempts to oppose the left. They're going to go beyond saying, guys, left, this commie stuff is unacceptable. I'm not interested in it. What instead is going to happen is the right is going to go way overshoot that, and they're going to say, I don't know, some Third Reich rhetoric. I don't know what they would say, but they would run too far in the other way, and they would be working towards ideas and positions that are way too far right. And I'm seeing the same thing happen with the medical stuff right now. So like we are seeing in real time actual medical fascism in real time. This is not even hyperbole anymore. Look at literally any news coming out of Australia and you'll see this just plain as day, like ripping kids out of their parents' arms, holding them down. They have helicopters with loudspeakers right out of something like 1984. Helicopters with loudspeakers just, warning people that if they're seen outside of their house, they're going to be caged. And then there was a manhunt for a guy recent. This was today. I saw the story. They showed the news. It was out of Australia. The news showed elevator. It was video from an elevator a guy outside of his house suspected of being infected with COVID, and he wasn't staying inside of his house. They issued a warrant for his arrest for being a COVID-carrying suspect. And there's a manhunt underway to find this guy. I'm not making this stuff up. This is right out of 1984.
Why don't the people of Australia grab their AR-15s and go, stop this crap?
For the same reason Americans have not yet grabbed their AR-15s and stopped this crap. I don't think it's the non-existence of guns. I think that's the easy answer, that Americans want to like grab their testicles and say, well, at least we got our guns. Nobody's using these things. We got them. Nobody's doing anything with them. Nobody stopped any of the tyranny we've experienced to date. What makes you think that you're going to stop it when they get a little bit closer to us? Australia's just farther along the path. They never used their guns. They had their guns taken away and didn't use their guns. You think you're going to be different? Let's see. Haven't seen it yet? Haven't seen it yet, Shepard?
It's not going to happen here either. It's going to be tough talk up until, okay, I understand, sir. Yes, sir. I understand, sir. Here you go. Yes, sir. That's what it's going to be. And isn't it sad? Isn't it sad that there's all this tough talk? And yet we're seeing this horrible stuff right in front of us. But I look forward to seeing you. I haven't seen you since February of last year was the last time I saw you. And I look forward to seeing you in a couple months. And because I want to do that, I don't want to die. And I'm fearful. And so I will bow to Massa and do what he says. And some guy is going to walk up and say, hey, I've got a long, hard thing that I want to put in you and squirt something out of the end of it. And at first I'm going to say, wait, I don't think I like men doing that to me. And he's saying, it's okay. It's a needle.
This got weird.
No,
what happened?
Well, isn't that the truth? You can't put long, hard things in me that squirt stuff out of the end. I am not down with that. I don't want you to do that to me. I really do. This is my body. This is my choice. Please don't put that thing into me. Like, is this crazy of me as a human being not wanting something invading my body against my will? Should I do, it's okay. I didn't see you had a badge. It's all got a crazy eye. I didn't notice that. Oh, it's all okay now. No.
Yeah. This was another thought that I had. I just put my random thoughts on Twitter, and I don't really care if anybody likes them or ever looks at them. But one of them was a question that I was asking myself that would be good. I want to hear your thoughts on. Let me find it real quick. Sorry, I wasn't ready for this, so I didn't have it queued up, but
you're finding it. And if you guys look at the top of the chat feed, actually, if you just go to voluntaryvirtue.org, that is where you can donate. And if you end the digit of whatever your donation is, make a custom donation, end the digit with an odd number if you think that Patrick is a better looking dude than I am. And if you think I'm a better looking dude, then you end it with an even number. So that'll just be a fun little contest. We can look at the numbers later, and then I can give Patrick crap about being second best when it comes to the looks department. So
I mean, he clearly looks better than me. Like, it's not even going to be. Yeah.
Odd number ending in your donation. Patrick's a better looking guy, okay? And no, it wasn't an accident that I picked the automatically things that automatically pop up. Okay, did that kill time for you?
No, that was perfect. Thank you. Voluntary Dan says that escalated quickly. Yeah. Okay, so the tweet was, the question was, can one attain and maintain freedom if they fear death? They've made slavery comfortable enough that they can take more than half of everything from the productive. Now all they're doing is dialing it in to see exactly where the cost benefit finally inverts and people start risking everything to resist. And that's kind of what we're talking about. Like, they are dialing in how much slavery people will put up with, and they're going to find the line. They're probably going to step over it a little bit, and then they're going to pull back. They're going to wait a little bit. They're going to step forward a little bit more. They're going to push it as far as they can, right up until the point when people have had enough. And the only way I see this ending is if they mess up and they go too far too fast. That's what Larkin thinks is going to happen. He thinks that they always mess up and they always go too far too fast. And they cross the line and they blow past it and they create resistance. And then, you know, a nasty, terrible revolution happens and things get reset and we start all over again. That's what Larkin thinks is going to happen. I think they're getting better at it. I'm worried that they're getting better at it and they're going to be more careful. What do you think?
I like to think both. I mean, I look at what somebody said to me today. My pal Mick says, this is ridiculous. And I have a feeling he took the jab because he wants to travel. Travel is a big deal to him. He wants to be able to get on airplanes and travel. So he's like, no, this is what I want to do. And I have the ability to do this. In order to travel, I have to take the jab. So, you know, I'm probably going to end up doing it. He told me a while back. And then today, when we got news that our local county tyrant is going to make a rule in 2 days saying that we have to wear masks, he was ticked off. And he's like, wait a minute. It was supposed to be if you got the jab, you didn't have to do this crap. And this is a capable person who you don't want to tick off. And this is like, wait a minute. You can't say take A or B, and I want you to take A, and you're like, okay, I'll take A, and then you still screw me over? No, you don't get to do that. So on the one hand, I think that, and then on the other hand, I think, what if the government at some point in history tried to get a whole city disarmed so they couldn't have handguns and AR-15s? And let's take some good people who have an agricultural background that are strong, good Americans. Let's take Illinois. Let's take Chicago. These are not people that put up with crap. Like, there's a good test case. Let's try getting guns to be heavily illegal or difficult to have in Chicago. Let's see how that goes. I'll bet you, if you look at the history, you'll find that there were tens of thousands of red-blooded, conservative, libertarian Americans with the Navy hats with the gold thing that were like, by golly, heck no, and I'm not going to put up with this, and they were all killed by the cops, and finally the cops won and disarmed everybody. Is that the history of why Chicago has been disarmed? Or was it a bunch of people going, well, you know, that I'm not going to shoot Officer Jennings when he tries to take my gun. He was my kid's school resource officer, and well, his wife makes good tacos, and no, it's going to be, guns are going to be taken from warm, compliant hands, not from cold, dead hands. And the same thing I predict, unfortunately, because they are getting smarter and smarter with propaganda, and with controlling people's thought, and unless we can all get this positive attitude and charge forward with the whole white pill thing that Michael Malice is proposing, of no, there's no such thing as a mainstream media. You're not going to hear the mainstream thought. You're hearing corporate media. Your neighbors down the street, they are mainstream. They don't think any of this ridiculous stuff makes sense. It's the corporate press, the corporate media. And until we all get this positive, cheerful, love you neighbor, but I'm not going to put up with your crap, let's all be good to each other and charge forward. I don't know that I have the gonads to go up against the man. So I'm not putting down the people of Chicago who acquiesce to the government, or California or New York. I'm just saying that those people were made of the same stuff as Texans and Arizonians. And no, we're not different stock. We're all the same people. And if they gave up, my money's on you giving up too. I know I have. I have certain capabilities. And yet I have no plans to be Mr. Tough Guy and go up against the man. I've got too much to lose. I get to hang out with you again next month. Like, do I want to give that up? No. I'll give up everything else. I want to hang out with you again.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it comes down to. If they make you comfortable enough, then the cost benefit is that, okay, I'll put up with a little bit of tyranny if I get to, you know, keep seeing my children and, you know, live in a comfy life with air conditioning and plenty of food. And it's only when the government messes up so bad that life starts to be really uncomfortable that unrest happens. So if they can dial it in just right, I don't see it ending Now, Australia is going off the rails. Like they're full pedal to the metal. They are going. So if anything's going to pop off, it's going to be Australia right now, I think. They're protesting right now, which is a terrible thing. Like protests are the worst thing that can happen because it allows people to blow off steam. I said this recently, steam that they need to have charged up and in them to actually do something that matters and makes a difference. It lets them get out and feel like they're doing something useful and feel like they're making change while the government pats them on the head and says, oh, yeah, thanks for protesting. You're being a good protesty citizen, and we're listening. We're listening to you. We understand. Thank you, citizen. Pat you on the head, like. Yeah.
Yep, that's that pressure release valve that my buddy Jim talks about. Yep, they release it just as soon as the pressure builds up to where something serious will happen. Exactly what you're saying. It's like, oh no, well, it's okay. I actually talked to Congressman Billy Joe Bob, and he said that there are several people thinking that way. And we can't at this point. We can't make a big argument, but let's wait it out. I think people are coming around. Yeah, right. No, they're not. Don't fall for the pressure release valve thing.
Yeah. Phobia says the price people are going to pay once the tyranny reaches the same level as Australia will be significantly higher. What do you mean by that? I'm not quite sure. Okay, so let me put a button on this. COVID has never been isolated. So isolated is a term used by medical professionals in a different way than laymen. The people making this accusation are mostly laymen. There are a couple doctors making the accusation. I'm not going to call them grifters, but I bet some of them are grifters. But the point is, if somebody is making this accusation or holding this position saying that COVID has never been isolated without pointing out the different ways that they're using it versus medical professionals using it, somebody's being disingenuous, knowingly or unknowingly. They might not realize. But this happens in all kinds of professions. It's called industry language or industry jargon. Like people that are professionals that are well trained in an industry will use words relating to their job differently than the untrained layman might use those same words. Isolated is one of those. A lot of medical professionals would call a virus isolated if they merely took somebody that was sick with the virus and wiped their nose and got some snot on the napkin or on the swab and isolated it from their body. They would say that they've isolated it. That is how a lot of medical professionals use the term isolated. So that's why we have this communication break where a lot of medical professionals say that it's been isolated and a lot of the laymen will say it hasn't been isolated, because to a layman like us, isolated means they've taken in a petri dish or in a test tube and they've separated out everything else except virus particles. And here we have a vial of nothing but virus particles, isolated from everything else in the body, blood, and cells and everything else. It's just the virus. That's what most people think of when they think of isolating the virus. That's not what they do for the most part, unless they go to extreme expense and effort to do it. It's also not incredibly necessary for their processes of sequencing, which is another claim that people make. They say that COVID's never been sequenced. Guys, these people have not looked for counter evidence. One Google search, you saw me do it in the background on this stream. Look, there's the gene sequence for SARS-CoV-19 right there. It's been done. It's been sequenced. Well, the challenge comes. How can they sequence something they haven't isolated? Using the term isolated as a layman, meaning if they haven't separated it from everything else and only had a vial of nothing but the SARS-CoV virus, how could they have sequenced it? Wouldn't a bunch of other sequences be mixed in with the genes if they tried to sequence a soup full of all kinds of other stuff? Guys, I'm an engineer, and I off the top of my head can come up with a way that I would do it. Like if I had a database that was a mix of a lot of different tables and data, and it was a mess, and I wanted to sequence the contents of that database, but only a certain part of it. There are ways that I would think through it as an engineer to figure this out. An example I can use would be like a soup analogy. So soup contains potatoes and celery and maybe some beef, tomatoes, let's say. Let's say that we we take 1,000 people that had soup for dinner, and all their soup contains meat and potatoes and celery and carrots. And, we're able to separate out a lot of the larger objects. So we know the sequence separately for potatoes, and we know the sequence for celery and carrots and tomatoes. One day, 10 people out of 1,000 get sick, and so we go and we sequence their soup that they had for dinner that night. But we can't pick out some little tiny bits in the soup, so we just sequence the entire soup. Well, how do we know what was different about their soup? Well, we can take that full sequence of the big mishmash and subtract the known sequence for the potato and subtract the known sequence for the carrot and the celery and the tomatoes. What we're left with is something new and different that we haven't seen before. And if all 10 of the sick people have that same different new sequence, well, we're probably onto something. So now we can refine our process. Guys, I'm not saying that this is what they did. I'm just saying, as a layman, I can think of ways to do it. Now, if I were a professional that had spent my entire life working on this issue of how to sequence viruses and things like this, I bet their ideas and I bet the processes that they've come up with are way better than what I just came up with, sort of off the top of my head. So this COVID has never been isolated or sequenced thing. It's like a red herring. It's something that tells me that the people involved haven't really thought it through fully. And it's something that makes me question their credentials or their experience in the area. Because if I, as a layman, can think of ways to do this stuff, it's fully plausible to me that the professionals have found much better ways than me. The virus culturing thing, viruses are much more difficult to culture than bacteria because they require living cells, but it can still be done. There's certain cell types that they can get to grow for a limited amount of time in cultures, so it's totally possible in limited ways. And the purified thing is kind of the same thing as isolated. It's a red herring in a lot of ways, not always necessary. So there's my spiel on that. Be careful, guys. Like to a layman, when they say, well, they can't isolate it, they haven't isolated it, you may be right. It may be impossible to isolate viruses because they're such tiny particles, but it also probably doesn't matter. So be careful. There's a lot of people out there going back to the point, there's a lot of people out there that are fighting this real-time, very real, very terrible, very immoral tyranny being enacted upon us using COVID as an excuse. They're fighting that by going too far into the irrational. We don't need to claim that viruses aren't real to say you do not have the right to lock people in their effing homes. We don't need to go crazy, we don't need to leave all the rational people in the dust to fight the tyranny. In fact, it's worse for us if we leave the rational people in the dust. We need as many people as we can fighting against the tyranny. That's my rant on that.
Amen. Amen. I think it's okay to say we don't know. That's my position, is the things you just said I hadn't heard before. So now my brain has gone, that's interesting. I'll have to think about that more. And then when my friend a couple of weeks ago that came to visit, and he was saying the same thing you just said about hadn't been isolated. Well, I don't know enough about medical stuff to know, is isolation necessary? Well, the test wasn't done properly. I don't know how to do the proper test. I know a little bit about the scientific method. But long story short, if there's something, I hear that the COVIDs are pretty nasty, and lots of my friends have had it, and you lose your taste afterward and for a while, and I'm overweight, so that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. And yeah, there are a few people that croak, and that sucks. But overall, I'm not that scared of it. But if you were able to persuade me, like a good umbrella salesperson, hey, if you use my product, it'll kind of work to keep you dry or keep you from getting the COVIDs, I'm all over it. Even all I have to do is get a shot or two, and then I'm not going to get sick. Sell it to me. Come up with good proof. Get Ron Paul to say it's okay. Get the people who I trust to say it's okay, who are kind of, somewhat normal mainstream. You don't have to go for wackos like me that are off on one edge, but just get a bunch of normal people who I trust to say, hey, well, it looks like this is a good thing. They told me what the ingredients were, and could be a good idea. Of course I want to do something that's not going to make me sick. That sounds awesome. Just persuade me using raw logic and reason, scientific method. And until then, I look at my current risk as a almost 50 overweight dude that exercises a lot. My risks aren't that high. There's some things that make me higher risk, some things make me lower. So I'm not that scared of that thing. And I'll say publicly, if I do croak in a day or a week or a month or 2 years from this or the next variant or the next virus, okay, maybe I should have taken some jab. But I'm really good with it. I'm not arguing that vaccines are good or bad. The current ones, the future ones, not arguing whether COVIDs are good or bad or scary or not. It's just as I look at all the things, I'm not that worried about asteroids. So I don't wear a football helmet when I walk around. Maybe I get hit by one and it kills me, but it just doesn't worry me that much. And so please don't initiate violence against me by making me lay down and have a guy put his thing in me. Don't make me do that. Just let me live. If it's good thing that's going to protect you, please go try it. Do it. I don't think it's going to kill you tomorrow. Go for it. You're safe. Let me be me, please. I'll let you be you. It kind of seems simple to me. Seems kindergarten level.
Moose says, I don't think football helmets work against asteroids.
Damn it. Well, that was a waste of $137.
Oh, man. Yeah. So, look, I could be wrong. I'm not a medical professional. I absolutely could be wrong. When I look for evidence of things to believe or not believe, I look for my standards are, is it sufficient? Is it a sufficient explanation? And is it a necessary explanation? And there's two parts to that. Like, it's easy to come up with sufficient explanations. Like, why is that basketball floating? God. God is a sufficient explanation for literally anything. If God is omniscient and omnipotent, he can do anything anywhere. It is a sufficient explanation for literally anything. Is it a necessary explanation? Hell no. There's lots of way simpler, more normal explanations for why a basketball might be floating than an all-powerful, omnipotent being. So the same thing goes for this. What is it? Is it a sufficient explanation to say that the government completely made up this virus? It doesn't exist. Viruses don't cause disease. Viruses don't exist. And this is just, a story they've been telling us so they can get some more tyranny? Yeah, that's a sufficient explanation, but it's damn sure not necessary. There's lots of way more banal, boring, much more normal, believable explanations. Maybe it is actually real. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't need to be fake for them to use it as an excuse for tyranny. And I'm concerned about the tyranny part. I'm not concerned about the making up stuff part, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Amen.
Okay. Necessary and sufficient. It's a good 2 words to remember when you're trying to be convinced of something. Is the thing sufficient? Yes, but that's the easy bar. Is it necessary? That's the bar that you got to watch. You got to watch closely sometimes. Phobia over on Float says, I think in response to me asking what he meant by his previous comment, says, everyone says they have so much to lose now, it's going to be worse if people don't suck it up and act now. Quote, I can't do that. I have kids to come home to. End quote. Yeah, what are you going to do when your kids are getting pepper sprayed and put in jail for being outside, not wearing a mask? And what kind of life are we leaving for our kids by complying with this shit? What do you say, Shepard?
I say that's an excellent point. And maybe that then brings me crumbling down to the bottom thing, to the bottom, the foundation of it, which is, okay, you're right. I just don't have the balls. Maybe that's what it comes down to, is there are times that you should fight against tyranny. And if we look at the old tired cliches of, if the Jews had started fighting Hitler sooner, maybe he wouldn't have gotten as far as he did, or the North Koreans right now, maybe if they had done something sooner. And I look at the people who have violently resisted or initiated violence against governments, especially strong governments, and generally it doesn't go well for them. And it's it takes a real brave person to do what might be the moral right thing, the long-term right thing. And those of you who are not writing comments right now because you're in prison or dead, kudos to you. You probably did the right thing. But everybody sitting here in front of a computer right now has evidently made the same choice that I have made, maybe making the same excuses, that the problem isn't a lack of libertarian violence. The problem is a lack of educating people to not buy BS from the man. And so that's kind of my thing is, what is my strong point? I'm not that great of a fighter, so maybe I should produce some video content and podcast content and books and try to spread the word and awaken people. Is that kind of a chicken poop way to get out of stuff rather than grabbing a sword and going and fighting the tank? Yeah, it is. I don't know that it's wrong, though. It's a choice I'm currently making. And yeah, I don't have plans to fight back violently. I think that at this point, that would be crushed pretty quickly. If it's ever strategically a good idea, if there's a time that the enemy is weak enough and that there's a good chance, then I don't know that much about war strategy, but my thinking is if I'm small and weak, that's not the time to yell and scream and go charging for their battle-hardened front lines. I don't know. Maybe I'm being a coward. I'm not saying I'm not. I don't know.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. It's time to survive and wake more people up. That's my strategy. Survive, thrive.
And protect yourself from asteroids. And we just learned this just in from Voluntary Dan on Odysee. The CDC told him that FDA-approved construction helmets would be superior protection against meteors. So now we have that new information in. So it's not football helmets. Thank you, Voluntary Dan.
It's safe to go outside if you're wearing your helmet. Well, that's good to know.
Yep. FDA-approved one. Don't just go wearing one of these little, Chinese ones, because you know how they are.
Well, if the CDC said so, it's definitely true.
It's got to be good. Thanks for saving our lives, Dan. You're a lifesaver.
And thanks to the CDC for being such good people on top of all the facts. Moose is having a trouble. I think Moose has a job that's requiring him to get the jab. So he's saying, it's my choice to keep my job or not, so I think I can relate to Shepard on this one. I don't think I have the balls to quit my job over taking the man's thing inside against my better judgment.
Yeah. And okay, so here's something else. And I'm sorry to talk so much.
We're basically done, so yeah, whatever we want to talk about, the floor is open.
So here's what I'm thinking is on the one hand, I think, okay, what if I did decide right now, I don't need to see my grandkids again, don't need to see my daughter again, I'm willing to stand up and make it happen. Okay, that would be one thought. Well, another thought would be, if I know I'm going to die today, and I think that the world is so horrible, I'm a black-pilled kind of person, that it's all going to come down, and anybody that's been jabbed will die within 3 years, and all this stuff. If I really think all this is going to happen, why not, instead of ending myself today, why not take the jab, live for 2 to 4 years, or whenever they drive by the house and hit the button to make the electromagnetic 5G blood cells in me explode? If all that is true, why not buy myself another week or month or 3 or 4 years? So while to date, August 2021, I have no intention of letting the man put his thing inside me, I have no intention of that. However, I'm not saying that is going to still be my choice 6 months from now, when I could lose my contract and all of our crew could lose their jobs if I don't do this. There are going to be some very heavy decisions that I have to make, and I think I will have to make those. And so I don't know what I'm going to come up with then, but there's a chance, as strong as I am right now, Love travel. Oh, the feel, the smell of that jet fuel when you're sitting in a jet and it's getting ready to take off, and you hear the engines that you hear. Oh, I love travel. I love all aspects of it. I am now recognizing that unless I get a private plane, I will probably never be able to experience that simple joy of an airplane ride. And that's weird to think. Well, the airplane's still there. You know, the owner of the airplane would like me to pay some money to them so that they can haul me from one place to another. We all want that, but I don't like to wear breath restrictors over my mouth and nose, and I don't like men putting their long, hard things into me. So if I don't like those two things, and I'm right now declining, am I never going to be able to fly a plane again? Am I going to have to drive everywhere? What about my friends? My friends in Mexico and in the UK, and like, I want to go visit them. But I'm kind of having to realize that unless I grow a pair, it's unlikely that I'll be on a plane again. It's a weird commercial plane. It's an uncomfortable, sad, weird thought.
Mm. Let me ask you this. So as a fellow business owner, I've thought about this, but so they're enacting mask requirements, and I think you talked about, you were going to comply with that requirement so that you can keep your business and continue providing people jobs. Where's the line on that? Like, what are they going to require next? Is there anything that would cross the line in which you would, sacrifice your business in resisting? Like, what if they require vaccinations for all your employees? Are you going to comply with that? Or what if they, I don't know, what would be after that? What if they require monitoring chips to be implanted in all of your employees? Like, I don't know, like, where's the line? I don't have an answer.
Yeah. And you know what? I think it's a rapidly moving line. And my wife and I, who are partners in our business, have made certain decisions. And we made one decision that we don't serve a certain type of person, depending on what their organizational structure is. It's related to being a mafia member. But if you're in that type of organization, we don't train you to be better at hurting people. And we probably have lost 25 to 75 grand a year in income that we could have made if we had done that for our business. We just, as of this morning, we talked about a current potential client who wants to come out and pay us a lot of money, but they want to know the vaccine status of all of our staff. And so that was an easy choice to say, no, we're not going to tell you if they've had gender reassignment, if they've had abortions, if they've had tattoos, if they've had breast augmentation, vaccines, any of that. That's a private medical matter. And as humanitarians, we would never even think of asking the question to them. We're too good at progressives to do that. And so we're not going to cross that line with our staff, and we're very happy to tell our clients that. But then they also then wondered, well, what's your mask policy? And our mask policy is, if a customer says, hey, I would like you to wear a mask, then we have one handy. And because we want to provide good customer service, if they ask us to if it was common asking us to wear a yellow ribbon in our hair, yeah, it's stupid. It looks silly. There's no good reason for it. But if a lot of people were asking us to wear yellow ribbons in our hair, that's part of being a good business owner. You listen to what your clients want and you provide it to them. So that choice, we leave it up to our staff and say, hey, would you be cool with wearing a yellow ribbon in your hair if that's what people ask of you? And if they say no, then we say, okay, but just know that you're not going to get as much work. We wish we could give it to you. And so it's kind of that's kind of how we're approaching it, is there are certain lines that no, we're not going to force people to have stuff put into their bodies. But we're, kind of bowing to the whole, we're forcing you to wear a more modest skirt or something over your face or whatever, even though we know those are stupid things. We want them to make money. We want to make money. Mm-hmm.
As for flying, like I gave that up years ago with the TSA. Like there was this 6-9 month period where I was flying many times a month for business. We were trying to make business deals, and I have such a deep loathing for the TSA and the process, and it's like the general slavery status, the acquiescence of the general people, of everyone around me to this demeaning, absurd security theater at the airports just enrages me to the point where I basically said, look, I'll just drive wherever. I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. This is disgusting and demeaning. And also there's 23-year-olds now that have never existed in a world without the TSA. So it's perfectly normal for that to exist. And I'm the weird one. But, so like, I feel like I gave up on flying years ago. So that's not like a new thing. But Phobia says, like, what if the airport requires you to be vaccinated? Like, we're all so quick to make adjustments to our lives, but everyone needs to figure out where their line is. The vax is his line. And my line was just the existence of the TSA. Like, I was done with flying years ago, so that's not really an immediate problem for me. Like, when I had to fly, I made it so uncomfortable for the TSA agents. It was hilarious. Like, I would try and psychologically disassemble them while they were patting me down. Like, there was this one time, I tell this story, I've told it before, where my TSA agent that was giving me my pat down was, I asked him about themselves. He was a pastor of a church. So while he was patting me down, I said, Pastor, and I called him Pastor. Pastor, last name. Where do our rights come from? Oh, our rights come from God, I think. Oh, so you're taking away something that God gave me right now. That gave him a long pause. I do not want him having a nice day at his job. And he told me the rest of his story, like he was only working there because his church wasn't doing well and he needed the money to survive for his family. And I understand all that. He's just doing his gerb. He's just paying his bills while taking my God-given freedoms. Screw these people.
Yep.
Screw these people.
To a large point, I agree, but I met a guy back when I was in private enterprise, not the current business that I have, but a previous business I had. I did mobile windshield repair, and I met this guy, and this was right after the 2007 to 2011 housing crash, and he was telling me, he was dressed in his TSA uniform. I was repairing his windshield. He was heading to work soon, and he was telling me that he had all these condos in Florida. He said, our net worth was $13 million. And then the housing crash happened and we had leveraged. We made a bunch of bad decisions. And now I'm 70-something years old and I'm headed to work at TSA. And yes, it was his choice to make stupid financial decisions or risks, speculations. And he lost. And he's older and he's trying to make stuff happen and rebuild, has medical issues, so he needed good insurance. That dude is headed into work. He was trying to be an entrepreneur, an investor, make stuff happen. And now he's in that position. And so I try to have compassion, and yet he's the bad guy. I get it. He's the bad guy. But he's also my unrelated grandpa who's trying to make it happen so he can afford for his wife to live longer for her, I don't know, her medication or whatever, because it's the only way he can get it. And like, I get that people will make immoral, unprincipled, bad decisions to keep them and those they love alive. And whether it's that dramatic, touchy-feely, romanticized, sad situation, or it's just somebody who's like, hey, I can make the big bucks. I can make $32,000 a year, and I get my uniforms dry cleaned. If I'm a TSA agent, if that's the person's impetus, or if it's a more serious one, God, I hate to be. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. They pit us against each other. We human critters. We shouldn't be pitted against each other.
Super awesome on Odysee. Thanks for the super chat over there. He says, I'm 32 and never flew without the TSA being a thing. I think the TSA was formed in 2001, so I think we were both wrong. I don't think so that means that there's 20-year-olds that are alive today that have never existed without the TSA. I think it was 2001. It was September 11th, right? It was like the September 11th thing.
I think that's when it got really hot and heavy, yeah. Oh, and look at this, Patrick. It ends in an odd number. A vote for you. That's BS, man. The $5 super chat had to end an odd number. Come on, somebody, even number.
I am the hot
Go
one.
to Voluntary Virtue.
No, stop voting.
Leave an even number donation for the what's this for? That's coming up in a week or just a little over a week.
Yeah, let's go ahead and close it out. So last call for questions while we talk about this. We're calling it Moo Fest unofficially. Officially, it's the celebration of Freedom and Bovinity Festival 2021. We're gonna head out to South Dallas. We're gonna cook some bacon-wrapped filet mignon to my highest possible standards. We're gonna serve homeless people that are usually eating the bargain barrel, quantity over quality food that the other sort of soup kitchen style people go out there and serve. We're going to give them filet mignon. So if you want to support what we're doing, we're about halfway to our goal of $1,000. So if you guys can donate, please go to voluntaryvirtue.org, click on the page for the event, and toss a few bucks in the hat. Better yet, come out. Come on out there. If you're going to be in the Dallas area, join us for the event. I suspect it's going to be a little bit smaller this year than it was last year, but I don't care. I'm just hanging out for my birthday, so come join us and do some good in the world. It looks like ANCAP says he's going to be there. ANCAP Copwatch. I think you're ANCAP Gamer. You've just changed your name. So ANCAP Copwatch says he's going to be there. Good. I'm glad you're coming out. You guys, road trip down to Dallas, September 4th, I think. But yeah, you can find the days and details on the website. Okay, guys. Shepard, thanks for hanging out with me. I've really enjoyed the show. As always.
Thank you. I'm in a better mood than when we started. I hope everybody else is and motivated to go out and make their own good choices for their own lives. I love it. Thank you for making me think.
I'm glad you're in a better mood. I was worried. We had a lot of not good stuff to talk about. In general, though, how is life going well for you up there? Are things good?
Yes. Yeah. Happy as a clam. We're moving out into the country a little bit more. We're not like homesteading or anything, but we're getting a little bit more out of our challenging health order type of environment to a little bit more rural area, and that's a good move for me. And I'm looking forward to it.
Let me ask you a
good
question.
Life we have ahead.
You don't have to answer this question because I don't know. You might have good reasons for not. So you have a business that you just said you turned down. I think law enforcement type clients. Doesn't that give you a reputation that's dangerous for your business?
No, because we're so nice and our customer service is so good that, it's just, oh, sorry, that's not going to work out. It's easy enough. We don't have to go into a whole diatribe each time and try to convince somebody who's not going to understand of something. We just know that when that inquiry comes in, it's like, oh, well, that's a bad day for us. Sorry, that's not going to work.
Okay.
And sorry, we can't help you with that. And
so you don't
we just
turn it into a confrontation. And okay, all right.
It's low level. I hate fighting with a sales clerk over something that corporate decided. Sales clerks trying to make freaking $11 an hour. They're low level. They're not the top 100 powerful people in the world. And even at the top 100, you're not going to change their minds. So why would I go for somebody that's a low-level person and try to waste my time, I don't know, sharing ideas with them? I'd rather go for smart people, find out where they are and chat with them, and they're probably smarter than I am, and I'm going to learn from them, and we'll share ideas.
Okay, guys. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for participating in the comments. As always, it's a pleasure to chat with you guys. If you disagree with anything I've said tonight, let me know. I really, really, really like to find out when I'm wrong. So, and maybe, if it sounds like you've got a point and you can prove me wrong, I'll invite you on the show and we can talk through it. I enjoy, honestly, being wrong. I think I even renamed myself to Wrong Patrick on the Discord server recently because I found out I was wrong on something, and I was so pleased by that fact that I wanted to advertise it. So, and that's the attitude I want everybody to have. Like, go look, try and be wrong. Go find out how you're wrong. Do your research. Look for counter opinions. Seek them out. Have them. Shepard, thank you so much for joining me again today.
You're welcome, and thank you.
All right, gentlemen. We will see you next time.